After 5 days of rain and delays in golf, the U.S. Open is in the books. Lucas Glover, your champion. Hey there, Lauren Shehadi. Steve Elling, your golf columnist, breaking it all down for you. Steve, Glover finished at -4, 2 shots over Mickelson, Duval, and Barnes. If you called this one, that was pretty good, but how did he do it, Steve?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people scratching their heads and wondering who Lucas Glover is. I think he pretty much showed what the strength of his game has been and probably will continue to be for a long time. I mean, he hits it straight and as far as anybody. He's probably the best pure driver of the golf ball on the PGA Tour. And, when you're playing in these U.S. Open tracks with thigh-high fescue and ankle-high rough and various critters and vermin running around out there in the woods, that's never a bad place to be. Today was probably the worst day he played the entire time, but I would tell people out there who don't know who Lucas Glover is, he is a worthy U.S. Open champion, and he beat 2 pretty good guys down the stretch who have, pretty decent pedigree with Phil Mickelson, who the fans were pulling for, and David Duval, who the fans were pulling for, and, two kind of sympathetic figures there in those 2 guys, and Lucas Glover shot them all down.
You definitely know who Lucas Glover is now. You mentioned Phil Mickelson, the fans, definitely a fan favorite. 5 U.S. Open runner-ups to his name. Quite a disappointment for Lefty, wasn't it, Steve?
I think I've been to 4 of the 5 Opens that he's blown now, and I wouldn't say today that he necessarily blew it. He made a couple of bogeys late coming in and had a 3-putt and bogeyed 17. He had an assist in it. It was odd. He was less bummed out about this one than I've seen at any of the other ones. I think, as he put it, his issues with his family's health, health crisis on the horizon here has kind of helped him keep it in perspective, and he seemed to handle it pretty good. I think he was just happy that he'd made the climb and got himself all the way up there into contention, and he was nowhere near as devastated as he was a couple of years ago when he blew it at Shinnecock when he had the title in hand. So he seemed to almost accept his fate.
Phil has the most runner-up finishes at the U.S. Open. Let's talk about a guy that kind of awoke from slumber, so to speak, Steve, in David Duval, tied for second, his first top 10 finish since 2002. Is that a sign of things to come?
That's the million-dollar question. He's Rip Van Winkle out here this week. He's been clinically in a coma now, and I think he's been on a feeding tube for the last 8 years. He's been gone so long. Well, he's been gone from the radar screen, but he's still been around. He's still been playing and just putting up pretty atrocious results. His best result this year was a tie for 55th, which, from a guy that was a former world number 1 who'd seemingly just climbed to the top of the mountain when he won the British Open 8 years ago, and everybody was expecting that to be, the beginning of some just absolutely unbelievably, demonstrably superior play, and instead it was a tipping point in the other direction. So, I don't know. Man, I'll tell you, you just kept waiting for Duval to cave, and he had a triple bogey right out of the chute today, and he came right back. He had 3 bogeys in a row in the middle of the back 9. And, he looked like a guy who seemingly had it all figured out. Why it worked better this week than it had at any point over the last 8 years, man, I'm sure if he knew the answer to that, he would have done it a whole hell of a lot earlier.
Absolutely, he would. I wonder what Tiger Woods would have done differently. I want to talk about Thursday and the inclement weather, Steve. When he starts on Thursday and he has to deal with those first 6 or 7 holes with the weather, how much of an influence does that have? Obviously, golf is a game where weather is going to become a factor, but would it have been any different in your eyes?
It might have been. Yeah, there's darn few guys up there on that leaderboard as I'm eyeballing it right now on the other side of the media center here that played on his side of the draw. But in all fairness, if you really want to get right down to it, Tiger Woods finished, 4 shots out of the lead here. And it was the 4 shots that he dropped on the final 4 holes when he was finishing off his first round on Friday when it was some of the best weather of the week. He made a bogey and or 2 bogeys and a double over the final 4 holes. And he was, swimming upstream the whole rest of the way, no pun intended, with all the water this week. And he just wasn't nearly sharp enough today to get any kind of momentum going and to make a sustained run at at the guys who were in front of him. Whereas Mickelson and Duvall were somehow able to, kind of summon some birdies. Tiger was just kind of marking time, and the leaders came back to him, but he just couldn't make up much ground on them. Not with birdies. They helped him with some bogeys, but it just wasn't enough.
A Monday finish again this year for the U.S. Open. Lucas Glover, your champion. Steve Elling, thanks for your time. Go home.
Yeah, I just telling one of our bosses that they didn't slide my hotel bill under the door this morning. They slipped a lease agreement under there. I've been up here so long.
There you go. For everything golf, keep right here on CBSSports.com. For Steve Elling, I'm Lauren Shehadi. Thanks for watching.